the product of who we're becoming is truly made up of the people we associate with the most. Fitness helped me to have almost this shield and this protection
Yep.
from a stepfather. Let's just see what the next step is and take this as far as we can take it.
Welcome back, investor. We got another episode of the Passive Income Adventures with Lance King, my buddy, my business partner. I know that we met at a conference where you were giving a fitness talk, and I was in the audience the whole time talking to your wife about real estate investing. And so I guess I want to hear this story from your perspective. Because I don't know, I felt really we were sitting on the front row and just chattered the whole time during your presentation. We are in for a treat today. Lance is a fitness expert who is also a real estate investor. We have an apartment building together, and he's gonna talk to us today about how to blend your high achieving nature with being a high paid professional, entrepreneur, real estate investor with your fitness journey and bring it all together so that you have the energy to get it all done as a business person of a person who has to take care of your own body. So thanks for coming with us, and talking to us today, Lance.
Yeah, I'm way excited. It may help to contextually paint a picture of why, when you met my wife, real estate was on the top of her mind because it probably caught you off guard a little bit.
It was the
But
weirdest, most that's why I wanna hear it from your perspective because it was so
yeah,
strange,
yeah,
the coincidences
yeah.
in the audience sitting there.
Yeah, and I think it's important to just remind everybody that the product of who we're becoming is truly made up of the people we associate with the most.
Yes.
And before we met at the Zenith Mastermind, about 6 months before that,
Mhm.
I found myself in Hawaii with a couple of people that you and I both know,
Mhm.
and in Hawaii, I had gone as an opportunity to be in a retreat type of a setting with five business owners to
Yeah.
talk about whether or not I wanted to continue as an owner in a healthcare compliance company,
Mhm.
which I was not feeling fulfilled. I wasn't seeing my business partner and I meet eye to eye on some of the next gears we needed to shift. So I was looking at whether to exit or not. And that was one of the reasons I was brought into this trip in Hawaii and a Hawaiian trail run because, of course, Jeff knows I would have absolutely loved that. So on this trip, I went for the trail run. I went to connect with Jeff and these other individuals. And in my experience, I had Nate join, and he wasn't there for the trail run, but he is somebody that Jeff invited to spend time with us because he had some real estate propositions. And this piqued my curiosity. And certainly spending the time that we did together on this trip, my interest in understanding the evolution of how somebody gets into real estate investing. And I had a lot of time with Nate where he talked about being a professor and then transitioning completely into real estate. And I wondered if that was a possibility for me. And that is the key word I want to focus on is possibility. Leaving Hawaii, possibility was on the brain for me also getting into real estate investing. The question was, how would I source a deal? How would I bring investors together? And so my wife, Linda, and I, we talked about the possibilities of bringing something like this together. And not long after that, a family member had heard that we had this interest and brought up the idea that if we wanted to source this apartment complex to anybody in my network, knowing that I had a lot of network relationships that were high net worth,
Mhm.
that I could give it a try.
Yep.
And so, knowing that there may be a possibility, we went to the Zenith Mastermind, which Jeff, Nate, and I
Mhm.
ended up founding for this exact reason,
Yep.
to have people come together and bring possibility to the table. And it just so happened that as I was presenting on the fitness topic, that you two met, and I really felt everything came together where all of the possibility pieces just started aligning. And I think when that happens, the next question is, let's just see what the next step is and take this as far as we can take it. And that ultimately has led us to where now we've had an apartment complex that's been renovated, and we've been at nearly 100% capacity for years now.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing that was so strange about it because Nate invited me to the retreat that we did in Miami, and I'm hanging out there, I don't really know why I'm there. It's just a we brought my daughter, my husband, we're having a good time, and I'm sitting in the talk, and she leans over and introduces herself. I actually didn't know she was your wife. And we're like, "What do you do?" And she told me she's a nurse, and she said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a real
Mhm.
estate investor." She just perked up, right? And
Perfect.
people perk up a lot when they hear that. It's a common type
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah. It
what
speaks to
kind of
curiosity.
yeah, what kind of real estate do you do? And I said, "Oh, we do large apartment buildings, multifamily, heavy renovations and things." She goes, "Oh, really? Where do you have buildings?" I said, "We bought our first one in this city in Idaho, and we have one here, and we have one in this other city." And she says the city in Idaho. She goes, "Do you like investing there?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Would you want another building there?" And I said, "Sure. It's a great market. I would totally buy another building there if the opportunity comes along." And she says, "No, do you want another building there? My grandma just died, and we want to buy her apartment building."
Yeah.
It's like, "What?" It was down the street, 5 minutes away from my other building, and it was just the
Amazing.
strangest convergence of events in Miami to be talking about this 2 people from Idaho, and like
That's
you said,
right.
we just took the next best step every single time, and I said, "I can help you buy it if you wanna buy it." And the thing I love about
Yes.
it is you and Linda are still partners on that family property, and that, to
That's
me,
right.
is the most exciting thing that we were able to put together because we were able to keep it in the family and give
Yes.
everybody involved an opportunity to make money, but also the opportunity to become real estate investors at a very high level. Not just anybody just goes and buys a 26 unit apartment building. So it's been
Yeah.
wild ride, and over the years, I've gotten to know you and your family better, your wife's family, and it's been, a big blessing to me in my life, and so this is just one of the things beyond the income, because really, we haven't really seen income from this building yet, we're still paying our investors, right? But
No.
eventually, we'll see
Yes.
some income from it, and just watching you on that journey from not quite day 1, but almost day 1 up to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about your fitness history, bring us up to the present day and what you're working on right
Yeah.
real estate and also just from your entrepreneurial fitness standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll certainly circle back to where things are at with the apartment complex.
Mhm.
I do want to talk about how I have this perfect blend in my life now of my passion and my real estate arm, which I hope will provide generational wealth. And I think that's a unique thing. I looked at life after receiving an MBA with a millennial mindset, which is that you can pursue your passion. And that's certainly the case today, but it was definitely reinforced growing up that people could make a career out of what they loved.
Mhm.
And I had a history of bodybuilding, and I had a history of helping people as a fitness coach get into bodybuilding competitions and effectively find out what their genetic potential was. And that's an exciting thing for so long until you start to learn more about what the body's able to do with just a course correction, with nutrition, and a course correction with exercise, and how that could impact somebody with not just like getting their best physique, but having more balance in life and living a life that's more optimized and doesn't have as much burnout. And so I've had quite an evolution. In fact, fitness for me was a saving grace. I think, and I expressed this at Zenith, the first Zenith that you went to, that literally fitness helped me to have almost this shield and this protection
Yep.
from a stepfather. Growing up, as many do in an abusive environment, I was moved to exercise because I felt that it would give me protection for not just myself, but for my brother and I. And ultimately, I had the intentions that I was going to get in my stepfather's face and I was going to beat him up. It was the mindset as an elementary school kid. But as things evolved in my life and I began to mature, I began to see a different side to him, a different side to life. And when I was able to get in his face and I did have a little more girth, it wasn't something I was interested in. In fact, I looked at ways I could help him to become more of a father figure. But moving forward, fitness has evolved in my life where after graduate school, I came in to a company. I was fortunate to be introduced to an individual in a software company doing healthcare compliance. And that was going to be all that I did as my primary career. And then I was going to keep just doing fitness coaching on the side. But after that experience in Hawaii with Jeff and Nate, I ended up leaving that relationship. And I tried a couple of startups after that, but I ultimately decided I'm going to be a fitness coach full time. And today, as a fitness coach, I really am more focused not on helping people get ready for bodybuilding competitions, although I do that regularly, but my focus is, again, helping people to avoid burnout and to optimize how they're able to show up in business. And once the business day is over, hopefully it does end for those listening to this, but that they're able to show up even more for their families.
Yeah. Now, I know you have a lot of kids, I have a lot of kids, Jeff has a lot of kids, Nate has a lot of kids, so we're
Yeah.
coming at
Yeah,
this
that's right.
as people who are being pulled in a lot of directions, and I know I've had many conversations with Nate about balance and zenith and the balance wheel, and I
Yeah.
keep saying I love how Nate has taken control of his fitness journey, and back when he was really
Thank you.
struggling with it, I say, "Nate, it's not different components. It's not like if you're focusing on your business, suddenly your parenting is suffering, or if you're focusing on your fitness,
Right.
suddenly your faith journey is suffering." As if you're a high
Right.
achiever, you're just a high achiever, plain and
Yeah.
simple, and you get really
Yes.
good at double dipping. Like, I'm going to go on a bike ride with my kids while we talk about the miracle of nature. These are the types of things
Yes.
you do,
Yes.
or you take your kid to work with you when you're talking to an investor. You've got to start double dipping on this stuff, and you've got to start integrating all of these things. And so this was a conversation we've had many times. But this leads me to the listener who it could be anywhere on a fitness journey. We have a lot of high achievers listening to the show. Some of them are wondering when they look in the mirror, why am I 75 pounds overweight? Why can I not get a hold of this? I am a high achiever. I am not the kind of person who goes around 75 pounds overweight, all the way up to the guy who's, "I wanna run an Ironman, and I wanna optimize every last
Yeah.
drop out of my fitness journey and to be an amazing entrepreneur at the same time." Like, we have people all along that spectrum. So, going with that, the integration that the high achiever has of just high achieving in every area of their lives almost evenly, what do you see as the biggest gap right now between high achievers and their business and their fitness journey that you see again and again and again at that message that you want to get out that would help the most people to get their heads screwed on straight and be better business people, better family people, and better and just more healthy?
Yeah, I'll actually say it right out the gate. And that's that the more you invest in your health, the more you'll be able to invest in relationships.
Okay.
Relationships are so emotionally driven. We need to make investments emotionally into the people that we care the most about. And if we aren't putting the right kind of information into our body with food, and if we're not exercising, which removes waste products, then it's going to be very difficult for us to effectively show up for the people we love the most.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing, you bring up this principle of balance. And Zenith, we certainly, for the last 5 years, we focused on this balance wheel. And in this balance wheel, we have faith and we have family and we have finance and then we have fitness, fulfillment, and fun. We have all of these areas. And every time we get together, we evaluate we have, where we rate in these different areas with the intent that our balance wheels, they go from looking really wonky and maybe they're still wonky at the end of when we meet. But the idea is that there's some expansion, that the wheels becoming a little bit more well-rounded, but there's just expansion in these areas. And I bring this up because oftentimes the gap is just awareness.
Mm.
There's so much that people do know inherently, even. People know what chocolate does to a person as opposed to broccoli. Chocolate is significantly better tasting than broccoli. But if we eat broccoli, broccoli has the effects of these GLP-1 medications that people are shooting into their gut for weight loss. It's a fascinating concept. And when we look at awareness, the reason somebody employs somebody like myself is because week to week, the number one thing I do is I just tell people to be accountable to the plans of nutrition and exercise. And I help them to navigate those plans on a life that week to week has a lot of change. As an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
there are changes that we have to pivot for all the time. And so, how do you address those changes? What could backup plans look like nutritionally, just like backup plans with a regular business day? And so, it's absolutely, again, to summarize, it's the investment we make into ourselves. We forget that investment carries into everything else that we do, and awareness and accountability. That's the real one solution that our company provides.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That brings up this is a huge topic, right? And I feel like this is gonna be a little bit of a short recording because we spent so long catching up before I hit record. We have to have you come back and really dive into some of these issues. But I feel like let's take the GLP-1. I know as a natural bodybuilder, you're in this world where anabolic steroids, if you wanna compete in a traditional bodybuilding contest, you cannot be on that stage without being juiced, having some gear, extra gear up there with you. Let's take that, like, somebody's looking at this and they're like, "Maybe this could help me. I don't know what
Mhm.
else to do. I can't just seem to get control of this on my own." And we've almost made this like a moral issue. And so that the guy who's looking in the mirror, he's 75 pounds overweight and he's kind of
Yeah.
himself for and he just can't get this under control. I don't think that should
Right.
be a first line of defense for
Mhm.
sure. But so many
I
people,
agree.
like you were talking about burnout, are so
Yeah.
worn down by this journey. Like when I first met Nate, like he was so worn down by this journey
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
very difficult to watch. And now as I'm
Mhm.
entering
Yeah, it was.
menopause, I am becoming
Um,
extremely worn down by the journey and
yes.
suffering from,
Yes.
like, fitness and burnout. Like, why is
Yeah.
this so hard? So, tell me about first lines of defense, when people seek a little bit of extra help, and how should they
Mhm.
feel
Yeah.
about some of these options that are available? It's not just with the agonists, but just with even caffeine could be seen in that avenue. So, just enlighten us on that topic.
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking. And we'll have to take some more time another time to dig a little deeper, or people can catch me offline to learn a little bit more of my thoughts. But what I will first say is that I think caffeine, I think GLP-1s, I think these kind of things have a place in someone's journey. They may have a place in someone's journey. But like caffeine, if people study caffeine and the impacts to the body, if there's too much caffeine in the body, we certainly become less receptive to the dosage for sure. But then we also find that there are things that are trying to combat or to balance out that huge hit
Mhm.
of caffeine, and they will wear out over time. And people will often talk about adrenal glands in particular and the problem that can come about with too much caffeine if we don't keep about. I usually recommend having caffeine once every 6 hours if that's what a person's going to do, because it takes 6 hours for caffeine to completely dilute. And so if we don't give our bodies that kind of a break, then it becomes very acidic,
Right.
and acidity in the body ultimately catches up. And what I have learned through my own personal research, especially after a mother died of cancer, is that a lot of things that start to build up, they ultimately create a whole different ecosystem inside, which in my mother's case, it created this perfect environment for cancer to thrive, and an environment where, because there was so much acidity and the body had to release a commensurate amount of insulin. And so there was this drip of insulin that was constantly released. And as a result, again, this perfect environment for her. And so GLP-1s, caffeine, they may have a place, but if we don't have a guided approach on these things and we don't take breaks from these things, then over time, there are these desensitization experiences that we go through in our body, and the body's going to have to try to find a way to balance. I have clients that they take GLP-1s. Fantastic. Take that, and we'll certainly bake that into your nutrition plan. with the intent that we're also going to ramp up greens, high fiber based greens that enable this natural release of GLP-1 so that when they get off it, they're not going to have a dramatic dip like people
Relapse.
feel when they've had too much caffeine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think caffeine is one of those things where I'm gonna make sure I'm getting enough sleep, I'm eating, I'm
Yes.
exercising, and so that I don't need caffeine, but every once in a while, like I'm driving on distance,
Huh?
like you say,
Right.
using
Right.
the using it as a tool, but if you overuse it, it's a problem because caffeine and GLP-1, they're not signalers, they don't help your body make more. In fact, they may
Right.
even suppress the body's ability to do what it needs to do naturally if we take too much of it. So I think real estate investors,
Smart.
entrepreneurs, high achieving professionals, we have very clear lines of cheating in business. It's if I tell you that I'm going to take your money and invest it in this thing, but I buy a boat with it, like that's illegal. That's cheating. But I think with fitness and nutrition, some people take that cheating from the business world over to their personal lives and they're like, I need to do this to be strong. I need to do this to prove that girl bossing or whatever you want to say.
Well,
I don't know if you look at it in the same terms of cheating, the way that business cheating works, or in fitness and nutrition, we're like, I'm just going to do what works. It's not cheating. If it works, I don't know. You
yeah,
tell
it's a good question because people often will tune into different podcasts that talk about this grind that people are supposed to have. I was watching a
me.
TikTok yesterday about productivity,
Yeah.
and this guy talked about working from 9 to 5, but then also looking at possibilities certain days to work from 5 to 9. And then if you wake up the next day, also starting your day at 5 and stopping to 9 and having these breaks, but working the entire day. And as I'm listening to to him getting this advice, I'm just thinking this is where people are burning out because this
Mhm.
is the advice that people are growing up on. Kids are learning. You've got to grind. As people have experiences with caffeine as this pick me up, that it can hopefully sustain you so long. I like to think of this like my first car. When I was 16, I had this car I was so excited to drive. And driving this car was just a blast, like picking up my friends, going wherever I want, this new freedom. As I drove, I thought, hey, this car is driving smoothly. I can probably prolong this light that's just gone off that says I need oil and this light that says I need to get my coolant. I was driving down the highway and my car stopped working. It completely seized. And I found out later that day from a mechanic that my engine was blown because it didn't have any oil in it. And this has been something I've had to look back on many times to think like, how can I have been that dumb? Like I didn't put oil in my engine. What in the world? And yet I think it's analogous to how people are treating their bodies. They are like pushing it until their body just squeezes. And I have clients that I work with that unfortunately, Emma, they're at a season where they've been the most successful person in the room. They've had all these accolades, but now they're trying to enjoy the time with their spouse and their grandchildren, and they just can't give anything because they have to focus on their health and getting it back as fast as they can. And unfortunately, there just aren't quick hacks at that point for a lot of people.
No, yeah, I see it as a foundational thing. If you have good habits already, so let's just take the
Yes.
GLP-1 agonist, for example. If
Yes.
you're in the gym lifting weights, they actually help you put on more muscle than if you weren't taking them. But if you're not working out in the gym, you will have muscle wasting. And so it's almost like if you already are ready to make these lifestyle changes, like every bite has to count when you're that limited on your calories. You really have to be eating nutrient dense food. A couple of handfuls of potato chips is just not going to cut it when you hardly are getting any food into your body. You have to
Yes.
really make those changes and make every bite count. Every minute in the gym is very important to prevent any kind of muscle loss with the weight loss. And I feel like, okay, let's just do that first. Once you're ready to make those changes, let's just do that first. And then if you still need a little boost, you have the good habits. It's caffeine's not going to fix if you didn't sleep. If you're
Right.
doing it
Right.
the right way, you can have little aids and tools. And so in the investing or
Yes.
the
Yes.
business world, I just find that people are still too often separating these facets of their lives and not recognizing the integration and that all things lead to one another. And these good habits in one area of your life like fitness, will lead to good habits in other areas of your life, like finance or being a good family person. So that's really, I think, the message that I get when we talk about this topic. I know, like, you're the fittest person I know, and you got a fitness coaching business. So it's just fascinating. You have so many clients and so many different experiences and so many different people that you've helped from so many different walks of life. You've got to just be able to see this whole more holistic picture than most people are able to see when they look at this topic.
Yeah, I do see a different dashboard, and yet people have this proverbial dashboard for business, and that dashboard should include a couple indicators that
Yeah.
suggest, hey, if you're going to have caffeine, fair enough. Let's look at the day and figure out how to position it so that you're only having it every 6 hours,
Mhm.
so that you don't have that burnout at the end of the day. If looking at your projects, intentionally put breaks in that can allow you to come back to that project revitalized and able to go a longer stretch. Look at a balanced meal as part of those breaks. Look at breath work, look at movement. Intentionally plan these things in. And I'd encourage anybody to take that time to have that quick audit on what a typical day looks like. It doesn't take long to see the patterns of what you typically do and how you can make one or two improvements.
Yeah.
And as you do that, look at the feedback again emotionally, how you're able at the end of the day to give even more to the relationships that mean the most, which is certainly the reason we do any investing and any generational wealth is for our families.
Yeah. And I learn a lot because we've done business together, done a deal together. When we're in our meetings, I'll be like walking around the neighborhood and you'll be on your treadmill. And that's just a perfect example of
That's right.
just getting it done. Like, you just
Yeah.
got to make time for this kind of stuff. You're one of the few families when I invite over for dinner, I'm not like embarrassed of what like
Eating
the way I
habits.
eat. Even though you and I have different diets, it's you
Yeah.
come in and it's like you prioritize the green stuff and you eat the protein and you talk about fueling
Yes.
the body and you never some people, get on my case if I decline the dessert. Let's just put it that way. And you are like,
Yeah.
"Good for you," and it's just so refreshing to be around somebody who gets it, that this stuff is important. Not
Yeah.
that you should never have a cookie or never have a dessert, but that this is a commitment that it takes to wanna be healthier. So I appreciate you being a good influence in my life that way and keeping things in perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for anybody that's listening to this that says, "I like to have dessert. I like to have these type of treats, especially with holiday seasons." I say, join the party. Like
Yeah.
I am somebody that loves to have a nice cookie or a treat around the holidays, and I have developed a nutrition plan that is based on what's called meal sequencing, so that when you eat the things at the very end of your meal, if it ends up being that you want a treat, if you batch that at the end of your meal and you start at the front end eating greens first, protein second, and then the things that break down into sugar. So the complex carbohydrates and then the simple sugars, that's the cookie. If that's at the tail end, it's not going to have as much of an impact because of what happens hormonally on the front end. And so that GPS nutrition guide, you can take that to restaurants, you can take that to a family dinner, high fiber based grains, a quality protein, and then complex carbohydrates, which is a binder of vitamins and minerals. If you'll do those things, if a person will do those things, they can still enjoy plenty of the treats that they like. And in fact, it could be a pattern the rest of your life where at the end of every meal, maybe you plan for up to 200 calories after your food. It really won't have as much of an impact
Mhm.
because of what you do on the front end of your meal.
Well, it's similar to what you were just talking about with the we're gonna grind from 5 AM to
Yeah.
9 PM, and it we need
Yeah.
to work hard to build good businesses. We need to work hard on all these things, but at the same time, there's a too far. There's a too extreme, and I do know people have to do some extreme stuff to get results that other people get just being normal. I know that there's a spectrum there as well, but just being able to keep that in perspective, pushing yourself too hard, and you can't have wedding
Yeah.
cake at your kid's wedding or these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Unless you're a food addict, which is thing, it's just a
Yeah.
way for people to take a step back and say, "How can I bring this into my life the same way that I bring family and business together and time management
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
not be crazy about the fitness journey.
Yeah. Food can be looked at just like dividends. So here we have this apartment complex. The money that has come in on my end, it just goes right back
Yeah.
into the complex. I haven't seen anything, and I won't for a long
I
time,
got
but
a
that's what
fractional
makes
distribution recently.
so just like in the investment world, we're willing to have those dividends put on hold for a while
More.
if we can look at having those treats around holidays and maybe having one or two reward meals each week where we have maybe an extra 1,000 calories worth of food, it will help accentuate what that experience is. And I'm all about like, how am I showing up in life? I am so focused on showing up and being the best I can be, living my best life day in and day out. And so sometimes, if again, if you were to eat cookies before you eat the rest of your meal, it's so easy for a person to go through half a dozen of cookies without a blink.
Like
But
shop.
but if we'll again just wait until the end of a meal, and if we want to every once in a while have the ice cream and the things that we want to have a little bit more embellished, they're just going to help you to enjoy them a lot more, and you'll be even more present in life if they are more of an intermittent thing.
Yeah. And there's another thing that you do that I like where you're helping high achievers, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, like this is your clientele, right? But you're also able to
Yes.
help them help the people, their employees and their surrounding network in ways that a lot of trainers aren't really thinking about. It's like you're wanting to make their entire workplace healthier. And that therefore improves their whole support system when they're around people who don't make fun of me for the weird noodles that I make you eat anyways.
You have a really good memory. Yeah, I think what employers want to see with their employees is they want to see somebody that comes in and day out, and they're able to offer their best selves emotionally, physically, mentally. And so I do work with companies to come in and to set up a very simple plan. It's much more diluted than when we work with people one on one, but that allows the different departments to work in groups and have each week the ability to just account for how their nutrition plan, and they're all individual, and how their exercise or their physical activity is going from week to week. Again, just a simple aspect of accountability,
Yeah,
whether it's something that is done within those departments or it's someone that's talking to me over Zoom. Accountability is that huge gap and an awareness of how to make small incremental improvements. And before we started this podcast, we talked about how important it is to meet people where they're at and to have those small incremental gains and improvements so that people will feel like something sustainable the rest of their lives.
yeah. And I know just for privacy reasons, I don't like to talk about some of the loaded conversations that I have with my family, like diet, fitness, nutrition, exercise, all of that. We've had to set up some boundaries in my family. Let's just put it that way. Somebody asked me one time on a podcast when I was a guest, they're like, what's your favorite food? It was some lightning round question. And I just sat there like an idiot, not saying anything. He said, actually, I need next question. It can be a real source of emotional distress for individuals and
Yeah.
families. Or I love that group accountability. And there's just a way of people being able to just talk to each other and have an individualized plan, but still be able to come together and make this work. And you've really captured that with the Zenith Mastermind because we're talking about both fitness and business and the other aspects of our life. And so you're able to,
Yeah.
like I said, you just are really good at being able to integrate these different areas of your life to make sure that you're a whole person showing up for your colleagues, for
Present.
your family. And it's just a really important lesson that I always get reminded of every time we talk. So thank you for being that
Excellent.
influence in my life. And how can people get a hold of you afterwards? And I always ask, like, why should people get a hold of you? What kind of person would be most helped by reaching out to you after the show?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the person that would be the most help is somebody that is currently looking at their day and they feel tired. They don't know how to organize their meals day to day. maybe they've been on an exercise program, but they need something that's going to improve their posture a little bit more, or there's a specific area of their body that they just want a little bit more definition. Again, I'm not about just getting six pack abs or getting somebody ready for a bodybuilding competition. If you're sluggish and you're feeling burnout, that is going to be felt by other people. You may not think it, but if you asked other people how you show up, you may be wearing a mask in
Yeah.
life and doing the best you can. But behind closed doors, that mask comes off and you're like, wow, I am really struggling.
Yeah.
And so I am on a mission to help to support real healing. And that does come from the information, i.e., the foods that we're taking in. And again, exercise activity. It doesn't have to be that you're going, it could be things done in the house. But the idea there is to make sure waste products are getting out and to make sure you're building lean muscle that can support how your body is being fueled throughout the day. I look at muscles like asset classes that have dividends that are more energy at the end of the day. Really, that is a huge byproduct. And for me, I am on Instagram and I'm also at xfitcoaching.com. If anybody wants to explore fitness coaching, we start with an application and we'll review that application, which is really designed just to audit how you're eating each day, what your routines are like. And then we're basically taking the routines that you have in your life and we're looking to see if we can help things to become a little bit more efficient and creating a plan that will have your optimal productivity, your optimal energy levels so that you can, again, live your best life. And then lastly, I'll just say that as far as where the apartment complex is at, again, I mentioned it's at this place now where for the last 4 years, we've gone through quite an evolution with construction, but we're now at a point where we've been able to have several years where it's been at 100% occupancy. And I just bought out with two of the other partners. What we just bought out one of our partners, and I think you're well aware of that. And the plan is to keep buying out a couple of the other people that invested money in. So it is something that's going to be even more of a long term investment. And I just have you to thank. I remember when I first looked at the possibility of seeing this apartment complex actually receive funding and have a plan for reconstruction and renovations. I remember that you said that you would be willing to act as a mentor to help educate me along this journey. And I remember thinking, wow, that is just like the best part of this whole thing that Emma is willing to make time to provide mentorship. And it's just been so impactful to learn from you and the people that I've met because of introductions and being around you. As I said in the beginning, we really are a product of the people we spend the most time with. I've been so fortunate to go on many trips with you. I've eaten in your home a couple of times. We've done lots of top golf and other fun activities. And I'm just so thankful for my relationship with you, Emma.
Likewise, honestly, even today, since we very first met and I did the first 15-day challenge that just about brought me to my knees, it was
That's right.
hard. The second 15 days are not as bad, y'all, just so you know that, but it was a, like, New Year's resolution thing. But even today, every time I go to the gym, especially if I'm there with my husband, I'm like, "We need to take a picture and send it to Lance." And I'm like, I never do.
That's right.
Right? But every time I'm like, "Where's the breakfast?
I
Where's
get lots of
the
pictures.
It's just one of those things, it's like you were talking about with the apartment. It's like you do something with delayed gratification. You don't have to be crazy about it, but you can reap dividends long term if you just go about it the right way and make sure that you're surrounded with the right people. So I hope that's what the message that came
That's
across.
right.
Like I said, this whole topic for me is so loaded based on my own history and my family's history with this. It's almost
Yeah.
hard for me to even talk about. So I appreciate you coming on, being candid,
Of course, of
letting
course, of course.
get this message out to people that may need to hear it. You're a high achiever
Yes.
and you really can be a high achiever in all areas of your life. You just need to have the right people. And Lance, for me, has been one of those people. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Emma.
All right. Until next time, if you want to get in touch with me, investwithemma.com. Also, we have a free club that meets every Monday night. I don't mention this every episode, but riseclubcapital.com, where we just look at commercial real estate deals and teach people how to figure out if a deal is good or not, if they want to invest in the deal or not. They're usually not our deals, deals that we're looking at investing at Rise Fund. And so if you want to come in there, riseclubcapital.com and learn how to get this stuff done, whether you want to become a new real estate investor as a career, or you just want to be a limited partner, everybody is welcome and we would love to see you there and hear about your next passive income adventure. Until next time.